Welcome, everyone, to the Spend Life Well show, where we apply biblical wisdom to your financial journey. I'm Certified Kingdom Advisor Mark Trice. In the studio with me, as always, is fellow financial advisor Jesse Hamilton.
Hello. Welcome to the show.
So there's been a lot of talk lately in the last few years about shareholder advocacy. Now, in the past, Jesse, that's really been about different constituent groups advocating their sometimes woke policies
Occasionally, yes.
often to influence and infiltrate corporations. And this went to the extreme, but a lot of groups have been really promoting a biblical worldview and going back to companies and saying, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make a lot of sense from a business perspective.
Right. So they're taking a charge from a faith-oriented biblical worldview, but also saying, hey, does it make sense for you to spend money supporting these organizations?
Right. So they're being advocates, if you will, for Christian believers and things. And Jesse, I think you had a verse from 1 Timothy.
Well, let's just start off with a verse really quick. 1 Timothy 5:8. But if someone doesn't provide for their own family, especially a member of their household, they have denied the faith, and they are worse than those who have no faith.
So we need to stand up as Christians to oppose a lot of the things that that companies are doing for companies that we own stocks and
That's
things.
right.
Every year, these corporations like Apple or you pick the company that's a public company, they have shareholder meetings and they have lots of different proxy votes in there of policies that they're considering and asking the board to adopt.
And if you own a share, you own a vote on that issue.
So you can influence what these companies are believing or what they're advocating or what they're politically supporting
Right.
other than their main function of business.
Yeah, and just a preference here, this is not a political show. We do not intend to spread an agenda by any means, but this is a biblical show where we want to spread a biblical worldview. And I wanted to highlight one group that's doing that right now. They had an article published. This is Inspire. You can find it on their blog. They recently published an article about David facing Goliath. And they actually got a word in at the shareholder meeting of the largest company in the world, Apple.
Yeah, it was really inspiring, not to play on their name.
But they made history.
They did. And Jesse, why don't you go ahead and kind of talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So unfortunately, the vote itself didn't go very well. They didn't get many votes, but for the first time ever, they were actually on the official record of the proxy vote, standing up for these issues that we believe are from a biblical worldview.
And this is a big deal.
It's a big deal
because a lot of these, there's a lot of proxy voting companies out there that just dominate everything.
And they do lean one direction.
And they do all lean one direction. Yes, you may agree with some of those policies, but I can guarantee you most of our clients do not.
Right. So they had 4 different resolutions, and I actually have the official resolutions right here in front of me.
Cool.
I printed from the Apple website. You can find these online. The first is the proposal for a report on charitable giving. This is simply an ask for Apple to disclose how its corporate contributions impact the risks associated to discrimination against individuals based on speech or religious exercise. So all they want, they're not asking for contribution one way or the other. They're just asking for a disclosure on how this benefits people.
Right. So give me some examples, Jesse, because I think a lot of people don't realize that some of these corporations are giving to certain causes that most Americans might find objectionable.
Right. So they're clearly taking a stance when they should remain apolitical.
And you are, as a shareholder, investors need to realize that you, in fact, are endorsing.
Yeah, your dollars are going this way. They're
this
doing
particular contribution or charitable giving to this organization because you're a shareholder.
It's just an example here. They're asking that Apple's donations support the First Amendment of the Constitution and the UN's Declaration of Basic Human Rights. But their example is support of the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a partisan organization that creates hate maps and hate watch. And on those hate maps are things like the Moms for Liberty, the Family Research Center, Homeschool Legal Defense Association, the Ruth Institute, and Franklin Graham. These are some people that are
that they're targeting.
they're being labeled as hate groups, yeah, and Apple is funding that.
So it's very interesting to see how this all panned out, because there's been a surge in basically in the last 4 years where certain even big banks
Yes.
were debanking or basically firing customers that had a particular religious purpose or a conservative viewpoint on things. They have admitted that wrong and are making some of those changes. JP Morgan Chase was the first
Yes, they
to
were.
confess and do that and make those changes so that they won't discriminate against any particular religious group or organization, but only, focus on the business itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is just a request for information. And so
It's just a disclosure on how they're being used.
I would think that as an investor, I wouldn't want to know, well, how is this company that I'm invested in? And I'm not saying I invest in Apple necessarily. We have to just give that disclosure all the time. But how is the company that I'm choosing to invest and put my hard-earned money into, how are they using that for purposes that are not related to the business? I want to know.
Right. So another resolution, by the way, that did not make it. That did not
Pass. All right.
Another one that did not
So
pass.
we'll never know.
Was
At least not this time.
the report on the cost and benefit of the child sex abuse material identifying software. So right now, Apple has a policy, and I printed it out right here, where if a child has an account, that's somebody under the age of 13, and explicit content comes their way, they get a pop-up that says, "Are you sure you want to continue? This will cause extreme harm to children." And the options are get help or continue.
And you told me, Jesse, that it was really designed for basically child predators,
right,
to see if the child predator wants to get help,
right,
with this. But folks, if you've ever been a teenager, which I think most of us have been, and especially in Jesse and I's case, we've all been 13-year-old teenage boys,
right.
Of course, I'm not going to back out of it, because if I want to go click on something to go see the dirty pictures and things, how's this statement even remotely prevent me from doing that?
It's just it's a warning, and that's their current corporate policy. You can read all about it here on why they denied it and why this is an appropriate solution for children. But brought forth by Boyer Research and the American Family Association.
Our friend Jerry has been on this podcast before.
His recommendation here was to implement a tool that Apple has used in the past called Neural Hash, which actually scans and then denies that material to be able to be distributed to children. Apple does not think it's appropriate. They have a bunch of lawyers and legal reasons why not. So feel free to dive into all the details here.
These are your kids and grandkids.
But, that's for your opinion and your own research to make. But anyways, they brought it up on the shareholder meeting and it did not pass.
So once again, another good idea kind of ran into a roadblock. This is how heavy some of these proxy voting companies are out there. If you own a mutual fund, oftentimes the mutual fund will own individual shares of different companies. There's a good chance that a growth mutual fund is going to have Apple in it. And these mutual fund companies just basically punt their proxy votes to a company that will go and vote for them. Majority of them are trying to block things that are family friendly.
So there were two other movements that also failed, but they made it onto the next ballot for next year. So this is a big deal. Even though they lost by a landslide, they're going to talk about them again next year.
Okay.
And the first is the proposal to eliminate DEI programs. And the second is the proposal for the report on ethical AI practices.
Okay. So all things that may be of interest to you, whether you believe in those or not. It's always interesting to kind of see these things. But the point is, folks, is that we as investors don't have to sit on the sidelines and just let companies and corporations just tell us how we're supposed to think.
Yeah, this is your money and your dollars, so you should have a say. And these activist groups like Boyer Research or Inspire, they're doing something on your behalf. So you don't actually have to call into the shareholder meeting and say, "Hey, I'm Joe. I have this viewpoint." When you pool resources together behind an Inspire or a Boyer Research, you have a lot more chance of an impact.
Yeah. And so there may be lots of things that are happening with that company that we often don't pay attention to, because who has time to read the
Hmm.
annual shareholder report with all the proxy votes and things like they're going to be in there. You're as a shareholder, you're welcome to join those shareholder calls. Sometimes they're actually a little bit interesting.
Yeah.
It's not so interesting to have to read through 250 pages of an annual shareholder report.
Right.
There are some advocacy groups out there that hold biblical worldviews that are actually taking the time to read these, and they're starting to make a difference.
Hmm. So Tim Schwarzenberger, who's the director of corporate engagement at Inspire,
Mhm.
he released a statement here talking about the Apple board's corporate donations for, quote, some of the most urgent issues facing our communities
And that's
today.
a quote from Apple's shareholder report.
Yes, and continued, quote, independent of political or religious affiliations. So that's their official statement.
They're actually saying we're not doing this. We're doing it all independent. We're not biased in any way.
But then later on in the quote, he says Apple is a platinum sponsor of the Human Rights Campaign, which pressures companies to do things like provide puberty blockers to minors on healthcare plans. And this behavior shows Apple is actually not behaving in a neutral manner.
It's our view as financial advisors and believers that corporations should stick to business.
Yeah.
Just focus
on making these things. I'm holding up my phone.
Focus on making your core product and your core business. Stay out of politics.
Mm-hmm. So obviously these movements or votes did not go well for the people that brought them forth, but they did make history by actually being on the ballot. They were on the official statement, and that's a big deal. We don't expect to, have these huge wins on day one by any means, but it's an interesting thing happening in our world and in our culture right now. So I thought we'd bring it up, and we would love to hear your opinions. There surely are a lot of opinions out there on these issues. Does it matter to you as a shareholder to have a vote on these things? Does it matter to you where your money is going and being used for? If you own even an index, if you own a mutual fund that has Apple in it,
you have a voice.
You have a voice, and are you conscious of where those dollars are going? So,
well, Jesse, thanks for bringing this up, because I think this is an important topic that anyone that's investing in anything really needs to be aware of where their funds are going.
Right. That's the main point here.
If you're interested in really investing, aligning your values and your investments, we'd be happy to talk to you, because I think there's a number of folks out there that maybe feel that way and are just not sure how to do that effectively and to have hopefully good returns. But we can talk to you about those things, and be glad to have a consultation with you, a complimentary consultation, of course. You can contact us at info@spendlifewell.com or info@clearvistafinancial.com.
Right.
I think the other one works too, or send us a text, 254-282-0495. That's 254-282-0495. Jesse, anything else you want to add about today's topic?
No, we're not trying to incite a riot here or cause any offense to anybody, but we're just bringing up issues that are happening.
Be aware, folks.
And be aware of it. And I hope this is a positive conversation for you. If you want to talk to us about it, we'd love to hear from you.
Great. Folks, you've been listening to Spend Life Well Show. We'll see you next time.
Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer, member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Clear Vista Financial are not affiliated. Discussions in the show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions.